Hits 106, Greatest Hits Radio. Good morning. I'm Marvelous Marvin. On the telephone with me, I've got an author. No, I can read. Trust me, you may not think so from listening to me, but yes, I can read. And Madonna Jervis Wise has written a book called A Haunted History of Pasco County. And I've got Madonna on the telephone with me right now. And good morning, Madonna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Marvin. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I got to tell you, I loved your book on so many levels. And when I first got it, I thought, well, I don't even believe in ghosts. I think this is going to be a kind of a stupid book. But the first thing I realized today is it's the opposite of a stupid book. And aside from the haunted aspect of it, it's an amazing history book of Pasco County. And I learned so many things that I didn't know.
Well, that's great to hear. It took me a while to be convinced to write this book, but I definitely wanted to infuse history in it. I think that we learn history by stories, and those stories of human interactions and personal experiences are what stay with us. So it ended up being a real enjoyable project, and I hope a project that people will learn from.
Anybody that is interested in our local history or even history in general, and anybody that's interested in the paranormal is going to love A Haunted History of Pasco County by our guest, Madonna Jervis Wise. And, you know, I don't believe in ghosts, actually. I've actually sat at the top of the Don Cesar on Halloween night with my shoes off like you're supposed to, waiting for the spirit there. The guy that built the place dropped dead of a heart attack in the lobby. And they swear that he still folds towels and hangs around there as a spirit. I never saw him, and I've been haunted by my ex-wife, but she's still alive, so that doesn't count either. But Madonna, do you personally believe in ghosts and the paranormal?
That is a great question. It's a several $1 million question. I will tell you that I worked for a couple of days with a ghost hunter, Nicole Farrow. And she said something to me that kind of stuck. She said, you're not going to be intrigued by ghost hunting or the whole experience of paranormal if you haven't yourself had an experience. And in that regard, I would say yes. But in terms of the scary aspect of it or whatever, I don't really believe in that. I am a spiritual person, so I think that there are aspects of our lives and our own experiences we don't fully understand.
No, totally, but it's almost like UFOs. If you've seen one, you can't stop talking about it for the rest of your life, and if you've never seen one, you think people that have seen them are crazy.
Well, I think, for example, Ann Westerman, who shared so many stories about the Jeffries house in Zephyr Hills, said it wasn't so much that we had seen or heard things, which they actually did, but she said, we just kind of felt the presence. So I think in that regard, I think most all human beings have had some kind of experience.
Well, I've had experiences with a beloved pet that passed away, a couple of them actually. And in fact, me and my bride, this is kind of weird. I had a cat named Etta for 13 years. As she died, she was the love of my life before I met my wife, but right after she died, both me and my wife were laying in bed, and it was a water bed. That's how long ago it was. And Etta used to walk on the foot of that bed, and you could feel it. And we, both of us, laying there at the same time, felt that. And that was kind of weird. So maybe I do believe. Who knows? But I do know that this is a great book. I'm starting to scare myself now. But this is a great history book. In addition to the haunted history, I learned so much about so many things like Dade City. I had no idea that Dade City at one time was like the center of the universe for Pasco County.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Really until very recent times. Of course, it was the county seat, and there was a big controversy over the declaration of it becoming the county seat when Pasco split from Hernando County. But, yes, all of the power base was on the east side of the county. And that's really until probably the early 90s. So, in fact, looking for the stories in Central Pasco and West Pasco was a bit more difficult because of that. And you will see a predominance of the mystical kinds of experiences are in regard to Dade City.
Right, because there's a history there going back a few hundred years that people can tell about. And, there wasn't the Indians; it was the invaders, I guess I could say. And speaking of invaders, who knew that there was a POW camp in World War II with Nazis in it in Dade City? Who knows that?
It's a wonderful story, and it tends to be a very positive story in terms of the way that Dade City embraced the POWs that were coming. It's mostly from Rommel's group in Africa that were shipped here. But I really wanted to tell the story from a little bit different angle. So Arthur Lang, who visited the area in the 1980s, spoke of, some of the days at after the armistice had been called, when there were some tough times at the camp and, food shortages and that kind of thing. But yes, the workers were sent out to Pasco packing. They were sent to Lacucci and Brooksville to work, and they were right there near Moore Mickens Educational Center where it was located.
That's just amazing. And then we have there's so many amazing things in this book. You got to read A Haunted History of Pasco County by our author, Madonna, Jervis Wise, The Dude Ranch in Moon Lake, Babe Ruth, Lana Turner. And here's the thing. I love this about your book is where instead of just saying, yes, this happened, or just not even commenting, there's a real intelligence that runs through this whole book to kind of let you know what's real and what's not. And you talk about Al Capone. Yeah, they say he's been there, but then you point out that that's pretty much impossible.
One of the people that helped me a lot with this book was the retired attorney from Dade City, Bill Dayton, who is just an extraordinary historian. And he, when we talked about the Moon Lake Dude Ranch, which was quite the place in the county, people have fairly well documented that Al Capone was not there, but there are some periods of time when he is out of jail that he's unaccounted for. And Bill had said, and I agree with him, there's all kinds of possibilities that he might have been there. There were some other gangster-type figures that were there, and they had enormous security when you drove into the Dude Ranch that was kind of protective. It was during Prohibition, so they were, guarding that whole right for alcohol and so on. But, there are many stories about Al Capone, even some stories about the cabin that he had there.
And let's talk about the Hacienda Hotel in Newport Richey. They were supposed to have it reopened by now, but because of the pandemic, it's been delayed. Should be opening next year. Talk about the history of the Hacienda Hotel.
Well, I was really lucky in that Derek Ponlitz, who is in the Marlborough building, he has a financial business right there in downtown Newport Richey, decided to host a ghost tour. That's how I met the lady I mentioned before, Pharaoh. And she kind of walked me through the ghost tour, figuratively, because there were several buildings there. The Ritchie Theater, which was originally the Megan Theater.
And I love this story. I love this story about the haunted seat, by the way, at the Ritchie
right.
Theater. I've been in there before. I never knew about that. Next time I go in, I'm going to be staring at that for sure.
Well, in terms of the Hacienda Hotel, there was a fairly dark story about the Hacienda Hotel, which is pretty easy to find if you Google it, a death that occurred there and so on. And when Nicole took the ghost tour through the Hacienda Hotel, she told me that she felt no darkness at all, that actually there was a Motley Crue song that she heard in the back of her tape. And they were doing some construction at that time, and so she just spent some time chatting with the construction workers who were so willing to talk with her. And one of them said, it's the oddest thing, because we were doing the construction on the second or third floor, I'm not sure, and it was around Christmas time, and we had a lot of scrap wood that was on the floor. And he said the next morning when we came in, and you will see that in the book, Nicole allowed me to use the photo, the scrap metal was assembled in the form of a Christmas tree. So Her conclusion was the Hacienda Hotel has very positive forces, if they exist at all.
And so when you go there, once you can rent a room there, you don't have to worry about evil spirits. And of course,
absolutely, it's going to be a beautiful location. They worked so hard on that.
And it's also known as a place where movie stars went, because before the Depression, there was a school of thought that Thomas Meehan, the silent film star, was trying to get this to be what Hollywood became. And you get to hear about certain celebrities and movie stars that supposedly came to the Hacienda Hotel or this area. Now, how do we know, for instance, Gloria Swanson? Now, I have a friend of mine that works at the West Pasco Historical Society, and he claims that Gloria Swanson never came to Newport Richey, and he bases that on a letter from Thomas Meehan to Gloria, and one that she sent back saying that she couldn't make it here for whatever reason. Not to say that was the only time she ever came here, but how did you come to the conclusion that Gloria Swanson, in fact, did visit this area and the West Pasco Hacienda Hotel?
And that person would be Jeff Miller, and he is the number one person.
I've known Jeff for like 40 years. He used to be the engineer at my first radio station I worked at, and I love Jeff.
He is phenomenal. He is the source of all sources, and what he says you can take to the bank. So in terms of
of course, you're a very smart lady. That's exactly where I got that